Now, I just want to make it clear. I'm a little different maybe in this regard from what people would expect, but I do believe that abortion is wrong, morally wrong. I do believe it's legitimate for the state to regulate abortion, much as it was able to do under the Roe decision. It's in the process of becoming a human being, and therefore it has a special dignity. It has to be considered in the decisions that we make. It's not just a lump of tissue or whatever. But also, I want to say I have seen abortion as part of a much larger problem and challenge for humanity for a long time, and that is the challenge that Jacques Ellul called technique. From the early modern period through the Protestant Reformation and the Enlightenment birth of liberalism and capitalism, mankind has been on this quest for complete mastery of nature. And the ability to do an abortion, either through a mechanical process or through medication, it's a part and parcel of that overall development and that overall attitude towards nature of domination. And I believe this is what was all a part of what John Paul II called the culture of death. And I would encourage people to look into that teaching and to take the Catholic social teaching seriously, because if you do, you will begin to see the fabric that has been torn asunder by technique, by modern technology, by liberal ideology, by the capitalist system. And that fabric is what would be necessary for women who have unwanted pregnancies to feel the trust level that they need in order to not consider abortion. So among the concerns that I have here is that I think that rather than this achieving what is intended by pro-life folks, that what you will get is a new level of felt desperation to abort early, to use medical procedure or medicinal procedures to do so, which are very, very difficult, if not impossible, to impede or influence, no matter what. And so, in the long run, I truly believe that this most likely will lead to more abortions, and it will lead to a great alienation of a lot of people, women, young people. I think it's going to be a sea change in our politics, actually, because men are going to be affected by this pretty severely as well, because men are the other half of the equation. And we're not ready. What I'm saying is we're not ready to handle the aftermath of this and take up the responsibility for what is going to happen in all of its dimensions. Most pro-life people have focused so kind of monomaniacally on this one issue, and they've been encouraged to by the political scene. And they haven't thought about what fabric it's woven into, and nor has there been adequate consideration about what comes after. How do we correct the rest of the situation so that people aren't doing desperate things? And I think that this is something that that Christians ought to have been thinking about more, should have put as much time into as they put time and money and effort and definitely political activity into achieving this one thing. I need, Christians to ask questions that are much deeper and more self-implicating, as in they are not going to come away from these questions thinking that they're innocent and have not done any wrong because they haven't had an abortion or they haven't paid for an abortion. The world is so much more complicated than that, unfortunately. I mean, what causes families to break up and spread all over the country and the world in the first place? Which, when families are busted apart, nuclear as well as extended, where's the support network for the young woman that has a baby that's out of wedlock or surprise? It's capitalism, the way it currently exists, all right, that causes families to break up. I mean, it's a huge factor, right? As people prioritize the ability to make a living or to make more money over family all the time. We have to admit this. You know, whose kids don't leave town if they want to make more money, if they want to be a professional? What causes men and women to not think of parenting first to begin with, or to see children as a real deterrent, you know, and liability? It's because they get in the way of making money. And, you know, we have long ago come to rely on both parties in a partnership or marriage having to be full-time workers if they want to move up in the world. Children get in the way of that. And if a person is planning to have a middle class or above lifestyle in this country and gets pregnant accidentally, it's like a, you know, a death sentence for their career aspirations. Let's just say that. So there's a huge pressure because of our society's values and the way the economy is set up to not let this accident get in the way. And that's just a fact. So what are you going to do about that? Okay. You have to face these facts. What makes the idea of hometown obsolete? Why is it that people move so much? You know, why is nobody there to take care of grandma and grandpa, and they have to go into assisted living, and you get onto like your Zoom every once in a while to see them? It's the economy and just our society's values, which in a large part flow from them. What creates conditions in which 53 people die in a truck, having been abandoned by a man who was smuggling migrants into the country to work in our meatpacking plants and on our farms? What are we living in a culture of life? Are we valuing life? No, they came because they were desperate and needed to make dollars, and they're needed on the other side because we all want to have cheap food. And at the same time, we don't want to say that, and we don't want to face that, and we criminalize these people, right? And so this happens. What causes people to eat things and to breathe things and to be in contact with things that cause cancer and obesity and diabetes and all sorts of ailments that turn most Americans into people who live less long, or if they live long, have way less quality of life? You know, why are we encouraged to eat these things, to be exposed to these things? Again, it's the imperative of our economy and our way of life. What causes pandemics to spread like wildfires around the world so fast that you can't act to stop them? Rampant international travel, much of which doesn't need to be done. And so all of this is a part of the culture of death. It's all a part of the culture of death. And all of us contribute to it. And almost all of us, and really like everybody, is somewhat blind to it. You get these glimpses of, oh, this isn't right, okay? But for the most part, you're blind to it on a daily basis. Or maybe you'd go crazy. But the fact is, if Christians could focus on this one thing, pro-life Christians could focus on this one thing for so long, to the point where it actually happened, then they've got the juice, if they wanted to turn their attention to this larger issue. And they themselves are responsible for creating this context, right? Both the bad context that I've just kind of covered, as well as, you know, changing it, making it better. So what compels women to abort a pregnancy if it's unexpected? Way more than just their, you know, their own like moral failings or lack of intelligence, which led them to get pregnant or whatever, okay? It's the world in which they live. It's the priorities of their boyfriend, their baby daddy, their, you know, their parents, the people around them. It's the imperatives that they feel, the forced imperative to work, and to work a full-time job, and the reality that a baby stops you from achieving the things that America says that you should definitely desire. So what we have in this country is a huge lack of trust, because the way that we've developed our economy and the accompanying technology has fostered conditions, like I've mentioned, that lead to a deep lack of trust. Trust is built upon relationships, and relationships have been blown apart. I look around and ask myself, do I want to trust my life and health to most Christians in the pro-life movement? And I can't say yes, sadly. I can't say yes. This is it makes me so sad. At my mother's funeral, which was recent, I was greeted by a Christian at the church that she was where the service was at. And the first words out of her mouth were, "I will not be wearing a mask," not "my condolences for your loss. Oh, how are you doing?" But no, because her first priority was, I think, whatever she thought that was, a personal statement of her own uniqueness, her specialness, her concern for herself, self-centered, whatever. It was probably some sort of political message. And I'm sure that she's pro-life, like coming from this small Midwest church. I think that's pretty inevitable, but I wouldn't trust her to be there for me or anybody else. And she proved it. And I would argue that a lot of people in our society have proven time and time and time again that they are not trustworthy on that level, probably with anybody that they know, and surely not with a young pregnant mother who's going to look at these folks and go, "Oh my God, I have no one. I have no one. And I'm on my own." And since I'm on my own and I don't have any ability to expect that other people have my back, or are going to love me and care about me, what am I going to do? I better do this. Okay. So like it or not, Christians, we cannot ignore this economy and this cultural attitude that we've created, right? And this is why I'm very interested in the Catholic worker movement, where people seem to realize that being pro-life for real means changing everything. It means extremely hard work. It means sacrifice. It means a lot more than most people who are pro-life in the United States even realize. And I would just say, this is their challenge, okay? Christians would have to change themselves, not just legislate to change other people's behavior, which is a futile quest. Let's face it. It doesn't really get to the heart of what is wrong. There's a noticeable absence of real community in many churches. In my own experience as a Catholic, I mean, honestly, I don't believe my church knows whether I attend or not, and has no idea what I'm doing. And I feel like there's an opposition between the pursuit of my relationship with Jesus and even good Catholic teaching and the church. I don't think they know when I'm not there or when I'm there. The only contact I have with them, unless you count going to mass, which I do occasionally, and I should do more, but this is part of what gets in the way. They sent somebody to my door for the latest capital campaign. My own experience hasn't been good, and it's frustrating because I truly believe that churches are the place where real community should be fostered. And in the case of women who are accidentally pregnant, or to decide that their pregnancy is very problematic for them, there's just really not like, and there are exceptions, obviously, but what would it be like if the church was already a full-fledged supportive community that people were immersed in, right? A lot fewer people would have unwanted pregnancies to begin with. The ones that did would be backed, right? So, what should Christians do if they want to reverse the larger damage of liberalism that has been done, liberalism and capitalism? Well, they'd have to create strong, loving communities where women feel backed up and where everybody feels truly backed up. if they're a member of a church. They need to create a community that stood by men so that they could take responsibility for their children instead of walking away. Walking away is men's equivalent of an abortion, and many of them end up paying child support, but it in no way even covers the costs of a child, let alone the needs of the child. Visitation every couple of weeks does not cut it. It's not real parenting. But in order for men to not abort their children by walking away, they would also need to know that they will be backed up. People weren't made to do these things as individuals on their own. Raising a family is truly a larger family and community effort, and that is what is missing. We need community that helps women, even if they make a big mistake, and not to just look at their situation punitively as though they just deserve it and have to deal with the consequences, or we throw them a bag of diapers and a lactation consult, send them on their way. We need to live in a society where money is deprioritized and we encourage people to stay put and help each other rather than moving out for larger and financially greener pastures. We can't have it both ways. You can't have, ever increasing growth, at least for a minority of people, or, the dream of the middle class. You can't have this and have strong community at the same time. It really is a case of one thing or another. We need a community that encourages people to see a direct obligation to the elderly and those who are unable to work. A direct obligation, again, to help them out, to create a context in which they're needed and hopefully useful, and not just warehoused or maintained. And we need a community where people are willing to pay the price and the loss of consumer comforts in order to prioritize our social obligations. So this is a complicated response to the overturning of Roe versus Wade. But I think unless the people who've long fought for this are able to change themselves and turn around their attitude and begin to love and support very actively, and to keep a critical eye on our larger society's priorities, particularly the economy, the economic system that we've made that produces so much that's anti-family, anti-community, anti-God, that unless they do that, then this is just going to end up being, it's going to make things worse, even for their own cause, certainly for the unity of our country